Let's look at networking note number 5. As we examine social media networking, let's talk really about online networking communities as a resource for job seekers. First, as we mentioned last time, there is a difference between social networking, which is linking with friends to socialize, versus business networking, which is developing relationships to help deliver results. Consequently, the more business-oriented websites usually produce better results. We would recommend LinkedIn for every job seeker and Facebook or MySpace as good social sites. Recruiters are now searching these databases for candidates, so watch out what information you present. Remember, you will also be judged by the company or friends you keep. And here's a warning. Limit your time associated with these websites. It is easy for a job seeker to hide behind keeping their websites up to date and responding to communications generated by the website rather than getting out and truly networking. So what's the point? Social media networking is important, but not a substitute for face-to-face relationships and building encounters. High touch trumps high tech any day. Best use of sites like LinkedIn or Facebook is to gather information regarding who knows who in one of your target companies. Networking note number 6. Learn to discern how to qualify contacts, connections, and calls. Let's assume you are successful and someone in your network gives you a referral, gives you a name of someone they know. Well, now what? Now you need to qualify that lead. Determine whether it is worth your time to connect to the contact. You need to qualify the contact, the connection, and the call. The first step is to qualify the contact. You need to investigate what is the person's potential. And the easiest way when someone gives you a referral is to say to them, tell me about whoever that is. Tell me about that person. And why is it important to get to know as much as you can about the contact? First, you need to determine if they are worth contacting. And if in your judgment they're not, it's best to tell the source, I don't understand it. I don't know why that would be a good referral to me. Help me understand. But if you judge that that person is not worth contacting, let that referral source know. Let them know, I think I'll put that on the back burner. I may not call them for a while so that you won't disappoint them with your inaction. Second reason would be that the background information on the contact can be really a source for what you can talk about when you connect with them, or what you might have in common. So what do you need to know about them? Well, first you need to know professional information. Their position in the company, their work history, their educational background, any associations that they're part of. And on top of professional background, personal background. Learn a little bit about their family, their interests, maybe their personality, willingness to help you or help others. As you gather this information, evaluate the person's potential as high, medium, or low. To help, look at the matrix in the exhibits in the Seeker's Notebook. If you qualify the contact as a high potential, always persevere to make the connection. If you qualify the contact as a low or no potential, ask the referral source why they recommend that contact. You may have missed something. If it ends up that you believe the contact is not worth chasing, tell the referral source, thanks, but I don't think I will make a connection with them. Otherwise, you have 24 hours to make an initial attempt to connect with any referral. Business and social networking sites like LinkedIn, Plaxico, Facebook, MySpace are good secondary means of gathering information to also help you qualify contacts. Okay, the second step is, after qualifying the contact, is to qualify the connection. You need to assess how reliable is the relationship between you and your referral source and between your referral source and their contact. Connections are like bridges. The stronger the bridge, the heavier the traffic that can move across it. You know how strong your relation is with the referral source, but what's the relationship like between the referral source and their But what is the relationship like between your referral source and their contact? Start by simply asking, well, how do you know so-and-so? Connections are only as valuable as their weakest link. With strong links, you can make much more happen. Well, the final step is to qualify the call. You need to think about how reasonable is the referral. You need to measure the temperature of the call. Cold calls are when the referral source is non-existent. When you make a cold call, the gatekeeper might ask one of these killer questions. She's in a meeting right now. Can I tell her the nature of your call? Tough to answer. Or, who are you with? I'm kind of all by myself here. Is this in regards to employment? Oh, I hope so. Oh, I hope so. And then all of a sudden you're down to HR. How do you handle questions like these? Well, simply be honest and tell them what you want. Here's another idea. Call during off hours, like before 8 or after 5. You might get around the gatekeeper. But better than cold calls are cool calls. Cool calls are when the referral source, though, is only passive. When they simply say, oh, hey, John, just use my name. Now, when you make a cool call, the gatekeeper asks the same killer questions. So, how did using their name help you? It doesn't. Warm calls are what you're looking for. Warm calls are when the referral source becomes proactive. They're willing to call or to write or to meet with their contact on your behalf. Here's what's good, is when the referral source makes a call and asks the contact to take the call. In other words, an introduction by phone, email, or letter saying, hey, I'm referring John to you. I want you to spend some time with John. Now, better than that is when the referral source requests a meeting between you and their contact. That's really what you're looking for. It's not just the connection, it is a meeting. But best is when the referral source suggests a trilateral meeting with all three people, the referral source, their contact, and you. Why? Goes back to the wisdom of Solomon written in Proverbs. Let another praise you and not your own mouth, someone else and not your own lips. A referral source who is proactive for you is your advance man or woman. Some of the strongest leaders in history, as recorded in the Bible, had an advance man. Joseph had his cupbearer who told the Pharaoh about Joseph's talent of interpreting dreams. Moses had his brother Aaron, who went along with him to confront the Pharaoh for the people of Israel. Paul had his Barnabas, the encourager, who went before Paul and told the early Christians that now Paul was one of them. He was on their side. And Jesus had John the Baptist, who made the path straight and the road smooth. Well, we've learned about cold calls and cool calls and how good warm calls are. The best, though, of course, is hot calls. That's when they call you for the interview. So what's the point? If a contact is worth chasing, then learn as much as possible as you can about the contact and the connection before trying to warm up the call. Networking note number 7. Kiss a bunch of frogs to find a prince. Yeah, that's right. Pucker up and get ready to kiss a bunch of frogs. A bunch of frogs, which means don't expect to find a prince on the first kiss. It takes time, so don't expect too much too soon. Here's how hits happen along the contact connection chain. At the starting point, you realize that networking starts with a primary contact. That is someone that you know personally or professionally. Secondary contacts are people you don't know who have been referred to you by people you do know. And then third and fourth level contacts are people that don't know you who have been referred to you by people that you've just met. So here's a question. Where do most of the hits happen? And what level, primary, secondary, third, fourth levels, do hits happen? That is, where job offers happen. Most hits happen 3 to 4 contacts out. So, here's another question. Let's say that you have a free hour tomorrow afternoon. There is a high potential person that you personally know that you have yet to contact. There's also a high potential total stranger who was referred to you by a secondary contact that you just met. Who do you try to meet? The right answer is based upon where most of the hits happen, and that is with the stranger. A final question might be, how many frogs do you have to kiss before you kiss the prince? Once again, let's do the math, because once again, it's a numbers game. The hit ratio between the numbers of people you need to contact versus the number of job leads generated is relatively high. Well, how high? Ratios like 10 to 1, 20 to 1, maybe even 50 to 1. Now, the hit ratio between the number of job leads generated versus the number of offers received is much lower. Well, how much lower? Ratios like 5 to 1 or 10 to 1. When you combine these ratios, it takes maybe 100 to 200 contacts to receive a single job offer. Setting a pace of connecting with 2 a day or 10 a week, it would take you 10 to 20 weeks of effort. Networking is like a giant funnel where you meet contacts at the top and have faith that a job will drip out of the bottom. Your job is not to watch the drip, 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 but to keep feeding the funnel from the top. Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes, when he was late in his life, cast your bread on the surface of water, for you will find it after a couple hours. No, after many days. Manage your expectations. And as a final note, with all of these frogs hopping about, it is important that you keep track of them, like basic information, like name, title, company, referral source, last contact date, follow-up actions, and contact information like email and snail mail addresses, phones, faxes, and assistant's name. And then background information like family and interest in college and school. So what's the point? Networking is a game of chance where the odds of winning improve as you increase the potential for hits and increase the numbers. In short, find a bunch of frogs of the best looking frogs to kiss. Networking note number 8, nurture your network, don't use and abuse it. True networking, person-to-person networking, requires that you nurture your network and be careful never to use and abuse it. How? How do you nurture your network? Well, first, you focus less on efficiency of short-term results, like delivering a resume, and focus more on the effectiveness of long-lasting relationships, like developing a resource. Networking is more like a courtship than a one-night stand. Payoffs may not occur at the point of meeting or the initial interview, may come later and may come more indirect. Secondly, focus less on pushing forward, kind of as a linear race, straight line race, and focus more on looping back, more of a circular embrace, as a way of staying in touch. You're not trying to race through everyone you know and let them know that you're out of work. You are constantly looping back, revisiting people in your network. Now, for high potential people, that loop is usually short. And for low potential people, your loop may be back in a while. But you're constantly looping back, nurturing your network. Third, focus less on having people feel used and more of having people feel useful. Relationships are built brick by brick over time. Time spent getting to know that person, studying them, reading all you can about them, talking with them, listening to them. The same approach is true when we're building our relationship with God. It is based upon time spent getting to know God, studying God, reading all you can about God, talking with God, listening to God. That's how you build a relationship. So what's the point? Relationships don't simply mature in a magic moment of a single meeting. They are developed over time. Well, let's move to our last networking note, number 9. Live the golden rule. The golden rule is not whoever has the gold rules. Many different faiths and religions have their version of the golden rule. Matthew, a Jewish tax collector for the Roman Empire, recorded how Jesus said it. Treat others as you want them to treat you. This is what the law and the prophets are all about. I love what Eugene Peterson writes in his version in the Message. He says, here is a simple rule of thumb guide for behavior. Ask yourself what you want people to do for you, then grab the initiative and do it for them. Add up God's law and prophets, and this is what you get. The rule of reciprocity was also made famous in the musical Chicago, where the lyrics are, if you be good to mama, then mama be good to you. Reciprocity is like a gift exchange, but here's the secret to success. You give without expectation of getting anything in return. Only the hope. The rules of reciprocity have 3 axioms. The first is sowing precedes reaping. Or as Paul writes to the Galatians, do not be deceived, God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. Zig Ziglar put it this way, you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. I've quoted from John, I've quoted from Paul. If you add George and Ringo, the Beatles said it, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Axiom 1, sowing precedes reaping. Axiom 2, the O factor precedes the I factor. The I factor is thinking only about I, me, my, mine. The O factor considers others as more important. Again, Paul writes to the Philippians, do nothing of selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, let each of you regard one another as more important than himself. Do not merely look after your own self-interests, but also the interest of others. The third axiom is giving precedes getting. Truly, there are more blessings in giving than getting. Winston Churchill said it this way, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And the great communicator, Christ himself, says this as recorded in the Gospel of Luke. Here's his command. He commands us. He simply says, give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. They will pour into your lap. For by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you in return. What's that mean? That means the more you give, the more it comes back to you. Simple, simple, simple command. Give. Well, what kind of giving should I give? Well, first off, give gifts of value. So what kind of gifts should you give that are most valuable? They are gifts of you. When you give away you, when you give yourself away, your talents, your gifts, your skills, your attitude, your life. I love what James Jones in his book, In the Middle of This Road We Call Life, writes. He said, the goal of childhood is to become an individual. Goal of adulthood is to give that individuality away. The task of childhood is to separate. The task of adulthood is to connect. So give gifts of values, but give gifts of knowledge. Gifts of what you know or your know-how. You give old knowledge, what you know from all the experiences you've had in work and in life. But also give gifts of new knowledge, what you know from research that you may have conducted on their industry or their competition or their market position or their product lines or service lines. I had one client looking for a property management job. He went to the sites. He took photographs. He documented. He came back and said, these are the things I found wrong, and here's a plan of how I would fix them. He got the job on the spot because he gave. Give gifts of connections, gifts of who you know who might be able to help them solve the problem or be a resource for them. Aren't you looking for that in return? Then give it. Be the example. And then give gifts of time. Oh, time is so dear. Sometimes it's easier to give money than your time. But now you're giving your time. Volunteer your time to a cause that they support. Work beside them. Volunteer for maybe a short-term, well-defined project to help them out at work. Charge less than market rates. Don't give yourself away for nothing else. You'll be worthless. They must have some skin in the game, but offer up, hey, why don't I spend the next week or two? Why don't I fly out? You pick up my expenses. I'll give you my time. Give gifts of random acts of kindness. Reach out and touch them in a personal way. Maybe that's a call. Maybe that's a compliment. Maybe that's a prayer. No act of kindness, says Aesop, no matter how small, is ever wasted. So what are some random acts of kindness? Well, drop in for a visit for a few minutes. Or maybe handwrite a little note of encouragement. The thing I like best about you is, and maybe just write that. Or maybe clip a top-of-mind news article of the day that you've read and thought of them and just send it with a note. Make a, what a hey call. What the hey? And just ask, what are you working on? What are some of the problems you're facing today? What insights have you had recently? Just to connect, just to say, I'm thinking about you. I really care about you. So what's the point? You connect with people in their world. When you give yourself away, you give love to your neighbor. There is no love without sacrifice of self. God knows this truth. This is why He sent His Son to take our place and lay down his life so that we may have life everlasting. Jesus said, greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. He paid the price for what we've done or failed to do. He was crucified. He died and was buried in a borrowed tomb. And the good news is that he lives today, and he wants you on his friends list. Well, let's wrap up now with some tasks to do before the next session. Take a look at the action checklist found on page 8 of session 7. And again, success comes when you put into practice what we've been preaching. As John said in this gospel, now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. First, if you're not part of LinkedIn, join. It is the best business networking site. Then consider joining Facebook or MySpace, but be careful with how much time those absorb. You can't hit a target unless you have one, so spend this week developing your target list of 200 organizations, then rank them. Here's my top 20 as A's, my next 60 as B's, and the rest as C's. Now spend some time researching your top 20. Finally, to help get ready for our next session, ask yourself, what is your biggest challenge when you are interviewing? So let's close with this. God has faith in you and what you can do with him. Have faith in him and what he has done, is doing, and will continue to do in your life. Let's go to him in a final word of prayer. Dear God, we have learned that networking is linking, connecting, bridging from someone we know to someone we want to know, someone with whom we are seeking to have a closer personal relationship. Heavenly Father, if there is anyone listening who wants to personally know you as the one true living God, then they're going to need to meet your Son, Jesus Christ. And if they don't know Jesus personally and need someone to help them with a warm call introduction, we would be more than ready to help them link the two of them together. We are well connected. We have friends in the high places. And in the name of the Most High God, we pray. Amen.